Discovery in the Void. Captain Marcus Chen floated in the observation deck of his salvage vessel, the Horizon Walker, staring at the massive structure drifting in the darkness ahead. At 45, Marcus had spent more than 2 decades pulling valuable scrap from the void, but he had never seen anything quite like this. The object before them defied easy categorization. It was too large to be a ship, too structured to be a natural formation, and too alien to belong to any known species. "What do you make of it, Doc?" Marcus asked without turning from the viewport. Behind him, Dr. Elena Vasquez was hunched over her scanner array, her dark hair falling across her face as she studied the readings. Elena was the best xenorchaeologist in the Outer Rim, and Marcus was lucky to have her on his crew. "It's incredible, Marcus," Elena replied, her voice filled with wonder. "The materials are unlike anything in our databases, some kind of crystalline metal composite that shouldn't be able to exist. And these energy readings." She paused, shaking her head. "There's still power running through that thing after who knows how many centuries." Lieutenant Jake Morrison, their security chief, drifted over to join them. The former colonial marine kept his hand near his sidearm out of habit, even though there was no obvious threat. "Could be a trap," he said gruffly. "Wouldn't be the first time someone left bait floating in space." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Jake's paranoia had saved their lives more than once, but Marcus's instincts told him this was different. The structure ahead of them pulsed with a faint, rhythmic light, almost like a heartbeat. It was beautiful in a way that spoke of intelligence and purpose. "Riley, bring us in closer," Marcus called to their engineer. Riley Park was barely 25, but they had an intuitive understanding of technology that bordered on supernatural. The young engineer's fingers danced across the control panel, and the Horizon Walker began its careful approach. As they drew nearer, the true scale of the object became apparent. It was at least 3 kilometers long, shaped like a massive crystal that had been carved and molded by impossible forces. Channels of light ran along its surface like glowing veins, and at various points, structures jutted out that might have been weapons or sensors or something else entirely. "It's not a ship," Elena breathed, her scanners working frantically. "It's more like a forge, or maybe a factory. But built for what?" The question hung in the air as they completed their approach. Marcus made the decision that would change everything. "Prep for boarding. Standard exploration protocol, but stay alert. This thing has been out here for a long time, and we don't know what might be waiting inside." An hour later, the 4-person crew floated through the airlock of what they had decided to call a forge. The interior was a maze of corridors and chambers, all carved from the same crystalline material as the exterior. Bioluminescent patterns ran along the walls, providing just enough light to see by. "Atmosphere is breathable," Riley reported, checking their scanner. "Oxygen levels are actually higher than ship standard. Temperature is comfortable. Whatever built this place, they liked similar conditions to us." They moved deeper into the structure, their magnetic boots clicking against the metal flooring. The architecture was clearly alien, with flowing curves and impossible angles that somehow felt natural rather than disorienting. Everything was sized for beings roughly human-sized, which Elena found particularly intriguing. The builders were Bechtel, she noted, examining scratches in the metal that might have been wear patterns. "Probably around our height, maybe a bit taller, but look at these tool marks." Their hands were different. More fingers, or maybe tentacles. They reached what appeared to be a central chamber, a vast space dominated by a pillar of pure crystal that stretched from floor to ceiling. The pillar pulsed with that same rhythmic light they had seen from outside, and as they approached it, the patterns seemed to respond to their presence. "Marcus," Riley called out, their voice tight with excitement. "You need to see this." Marcus floated over to where Riley was examining a panel covered in symbols that shifted and changed as they watched. "It's some kind of interface," Riley explained, "and I think it's trying to communicate with us." As if in response to Riley's words, the symbols suddenly shifted, reorganizing themselves into something that looked almost like pictographs. The first image showed the forge as it was now, alone in space. The second showed it surrounded by similar structures, forming what might have been a vast fleet or construction array. There were more of them, Elena whispered. This was part of something much larger. The images continued to change, telling a story in pictures. The builders were tall, graceful beings with elongated limbs and faces that reminded Marcus of deep-sea creatures. They had built vast cities among the stars, connected by networks of these crystal ships. But then came the darkness. The final images showed ships of a different design, angular and predatory, swarming through space like locusts. The crystal cities burned, and one by one, the forges went dark. This one had survived by going dormant, hiding in the void until someone worthy might find it. My God, Elena breathed. It's been waiting for someone to wake it up. As if her words were a trigger, the entire chamber suddenly blazed with light. The crystal pillars sang with harmonic frequencies that seemed to resonate in their bones, and Marcus felt something touch his mind. Not an invasion, but a gentle inquiry, like a hand extended in greeting. Welcome, a voice said, not in their ears but directly in their thoughts. I am the last forge of the architects. I have waited so long for one such as you. Jake's hand went to his weapon, but Marcus raised a hand to stop him. Whatever this was, it didn't feel hostile. It felt lonely. You're the ship's mind, Marcus asked aloud. I am more than a ship, the voice replied. I am a maker, a builder, a guardian. My creators built me to preserve their knowledge and wait for those who might carry on their work. You are not them, but you have the spark they sought. The desire to explore, to build, to protect. Elena stepped forward, her scientific excitement overriding her caution. What happened to your creators? The architects. Images flashed through their minds. A war that spanned galaxies, fought against an enemy that consumed entire worlds. The architects had been builders and guardians, but their enemies were devourers, creatures that existed only to consume and destroy. They called themselves the hierarchy, but we knew them as the devourers, the forge explained. They came from the spaces between galaxies, drawn by the light of civilization. They consumed my creators' worlds, their people, their very essence. I am all that remains of 1,000,000 years of knowledge and creation. Marcus felt the weight of that loss, transmitted directly into his mind. An entire civilization, gone except for this one guardian floating in the dark. Why us? He asked. Why humans? Because you are like they were, the forge replied. Curious, brave, willing to reach into the unknown. And because the devourers have found you. They come even now, drawn by the signals of your expanding civilization. Without help, your species will suffer the same fate as my creators. The chamber fell silent except for the harmonic humming of the crystal pillar. Marcus looked at his crew, seeing his own thoughts reflected in their faces. They were salvagers, not heroes. But sometimes, Marcus reflected, the universe didn't give you a choice about what you became. What kind of help are you offering? He asked. The forge's response came not in words, but in a flood of images and sensations. They saw the structure around them transform, no longer just a derelict artifact, but a weapon of unimaginable power. They felt the knowledge of the architects flowing through their minds, technologies beyond their current understanding, but not beyond their ability to learn. I offer partnership, the forge said. Your creativity and adaptability, combined with the knowledge of the architects. Together, we can become something neither of us could be alone. A guardian for your people, as I was meant to be for mine. Riley was the first to speak. The power requirements alone would be incredible. Our current technology couldn't even begin to interface with systems like this. Then we will build new technology, the forge replied. I will teach and you will learn. Your species has a gift for adaptation that even the architects lacked. You take the impossible and make it work. Marcus made his decision. It wasn't really a choice, not with the fate of humanity potentially hanging in the balance. But more than that, he felt the rightness of it. This was what they were meant to find, what he had been searching for all his life without knowing it. "What do you need from us?" he asked. "Your consent to the bonding, and your trust. The process will change you, as it will change me. We will become something new together." Elena stepped forward without hesitation. "I'm a xenoarchaeologist," she said. "This is the discovery of a lifetime." "Of course I'm in." Jake was more cautious, but Marcus could see the resolve in the Marine's eyes. "If there's a threat coming for Earth, then we do what we have to do," he said simply. Riley's grin was infectious. "Are you kidding? The chance to work with technology like this. I'm already imagining the possibilities." Marcus nodded to the crystal pillar. "Then let's begin. Place your hands upon the interface," the forge instructed, "and prepare for wonders." Awakening the Titan. As Marcus placed his hand on the crystal interface, the universe exploded into light and sensation. Knowledge flooded his mind, not as information, but as understanding. He could suddenly perceive the forge not as a ship but as a living entity, its thoughts intertwining with his own. The sensation was overwhelming and beautiful, like touching the mind of a god. The bonding process lasted only moments, but when it ended, everything had changed. Marcus could feel the forge's presence in his mind, a warm, ancient consciousness that welcomed him like a long-lost friend. Around him, his crew members were experiencing the same transformation, their eyes wide with wonder and understanding. "I can feel it," Elena whispered, her voice filled with awe. "All of it. The knowledge, the history, the purpose. We're connected to something incredible." Riley was already moving toward one of the control panels, their hands dancing over symbols that now made perfect sense. "The systems are responding," they said excitedly. "I can see the entire structure in my mind. It's not just a ship, it's a mobile construction facility. It can build anything the architects ever dreamed of." Jake remained characteristically practical. "And the threat? When are these devourers supposed to arrive?" The answer came not from the forge's voice, but from their shared consciousness. Images flashed through their minds of ships emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Dark, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "They have already begun their approach," the forge confirmed. "Their scout ships will arrive within days. The main fleet follows close behind." Marcus felt the urgency of the situation settle over him like a weight. What can we do against an entire fleet with just one ship? "Not just one ship," the forge replied. "One ship that can become many. One ship that can build and adapt and grow." The architects were peaceful builders, but they learned to fight when they had to. I am the culmination of their knowledge, both creative and martial. To demonstrate, the forge began to change around them. The walls flowed like liquid, reconfiguring themselves into new shapes. Weapon systems emerged from hidden compartments, sleek and deadly. Manufacturing bays opened in the hull, ready to produce whatever was needed. "Incredible," Elena breathed, watching the transformation. "It's not just reconfiguring, it's evolving, adapting to our needs and our way of thinking." Riley was at the main engineering console, their eyes glowing with the reflected light of the displays. "The power systems are unlike anything I've ever seen. They're drawing energy from quantum fluctuations in space itself, essentially unlimited power. But power alone is not enough," the forge warned. "The Devourers have faced the architect's technology before. They have learned to counter it. We need something new, something they have never encountered." Marcus understood. Human ingenuity. "You want us to combine your technology with our methods." Precisely. The architects were brilliant but predictable. They followed patterns, rules, logical progressions. Humans are chaotic, creative, unpredictable. You solve problems in ways my creators never imagined. Jake had moved to what was clearly a tactical station, studying the defensive systems. "These weapon arrays are impressive, but they're designed for the architect's style of warfare. We'll need to modify them." Over the next several hours, the crew worked with the forge to begin the transformation. It was unlike any engineering project any of them had ever attempted. The ship's systems responded to their thoughts as much as their commands, learning and adapting with each modification. Elena discovered that the forge could analyze and replicate any technology it encountered, improving upon it in the process. "Show it a human fusion reactor," she explained to the others, "and it can build one 10 times more efficient in minutes." Riley was working on the propulsion systems, combining the forge's quantum drives with human navigation computers. "We're going to be fast," they said with satisfaction. "Faster than anything the Devourers have ever seen." But it was Jake who made the most crucial discovery. Working with the weapons systems, he realized that the forge's manufacturing capabilities could be turned into the ultimate advantage. "We don't need to outgun them," he explained to Marcus. "We need to outthink them. The forge can manufacture drones, missiles, even entire fighter craft in minutes. We can fight them with tactics they've never seen." As they worked, the forge shared more of the architect's history. The ancient race had been guardians of the galaxy, building wonders and protecting younger civilizations, but they had been too few and too noble to survive the Devourers' hunger. They consumed not just worlds, but the essence of intelligence itself, the forge explained. Each victory made them stronger, more cunning. They are the ultimate predators, and they have had eons to perfect their methods. "But they've never faced humans," Marcus said grimly. "They don't know what we're capable of when we're desperate." On the third day, the scout ships arrived. The forge's sensors tracked them as they emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, dark shapes that seemed to bend light around them. There were dozens of them, each one the size of a human battlecruiser. "They are probing," the forge reported, "testing our defenses, learning our capabilities. The main fleet will follow within days." Marcus made the decision to reveal themselves. "They'll find us eventually anyway. Better to do it on our terms." The forge moved out of the asteroid field where they had been hiding, its hull now gleaming with new armor and bristling with weapons that merged architect elegance with human pragmatism. The scout ships immediately detected them and began to converge. The first battle was brief but educational. The Devourers attacked with weapons that twisted space itself, trying to crush the forge with gravitational fields, but the ship's new adaptive shielding, designed by Riley, converted the attack into energy that fed their own systems. Jake's tactical modifications proved their worth as the forge launched swarms of drones that fought and moved like human pilots. The Devourers' targeting systems, designed to track the predictable patterns of architect vessels, couldn't keep up with the chaotic, intuitive movements of human-designed fighters. Elena's analysis of the enemy ships revealed their weakness. "They're parasites," she explained. "They need to feed on intelligence to survive. That's why they consume civilizations. But if we can starve them..." The solution was elegant in its simplicity. Using the forge's manufacturing capabilities, they created decoy signals that mimicked the neural patterns of inhabited worlds. The Devourers' hunger drove them toward the false signals, where they found only empty space and quantum mines. When the main fleet arrived, they found not a single alien artifact, but a swarm of hybrid vessels that combined the best of two very different civilizations. The forge had replicated itself dozens of times, each copy crewed by volunteers from Earth who had accepted the bonding with architect technology. The battle that followed would be remembered as the greatest space engagement in human history. The Devourers came in waves, their dark ships blotting out the stars. But for every ship they destroyed, the forge fleet built 2 more. For every tactic they employed, the humans countered with something they had never seen. Marcus found himself at the center of it all. His consciousness linked to every ship in the fleet. He could feel the minds of his fellow captains, their fear and determination mixing with the ancient wisdom of the forge minds. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. "They're falling back," Jake reported from his tactical station. Around them, the bridge crew worked with inhuman efficiency, their minds enhanced by the architect technology, but still fundamentally human. Elena was monitoring the retreating Devours. They're regrouping. This isn't over. No, the Forge agreed. But it is a beginning. The Devours have learned that this galaxy is defended now. They will think twice before returning. Riley was already working on new designs, improvements to their hybrid technology. We need to share this with Earth. Every world in human space should have these defenses. Marcus nodded, looking out at the stars where the battle had raged. Humanity had won its first galactic war, but more importantly, they had proven themselves worthy of the Architect's legacy. We're not just salvagers anymore, he said to his crew. We're guardians now. The Forge has given us the tools, but it's up to us to use them wisely. The Architects built me to preserve their knowledge and wait for worthy successors, the Forge added. I waited millions of years, and now I know the wait was worthwhile. Humanity will carry the light of civilization to corners of the galaxy Architects never imagined. As they began the journey back to Earth, Marcus reflected on how much had changed. They had started as scavengers looking for valuable scrap, but they had found something far more precious. A purpose. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with threats that could end human civilization in an instant. But now humanity had guardians, and those guardians had the knowledge and power to protect everything they held dear. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun, but it would be an expansion guided by wisdom, protected by strength, and tempered by the memory of what had been lost when the Architects fell to the Devourer's hunger. In the void between stars, the Forge sang with harmonics that had not been heard for 1,000,000 years. The song was one of hope, of renewal, and of the promise that this time, the Guardians would not fall.